mostly off-limits to the public. Antarctica is one of the most inaccessible places on Earth, and not just because of its brutal climate. Access is heavily regulated by international agreements and individual governments. Tourists can visit certain coastal areas on expedition cruises, but the vast interior is essentially off-limits to anyone without scientific credentials and institutional backing. Even journalists and documentary crews need special permits. This restricted access is entirely practical. The continent is dangerous, environmentally fragile, and expensive to reach. But it naturally feeds conspiracy thinking. When people aren't allowed somewhere, they wonder what's being hidden. The remoteness and secrecy surrounding Antarctic research stations has made it a blank canvas for speculation for decades. Seventh continent. This is as surface level as it gets. Antarctica is simply Earth's seventh and southernmost continent, sitting over the South Pole and covered almost entirely by an ice sheet up to 4 kilometers thick in places. It's the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on Earth, with no permanent human population. Despite being larger than Europe, it holds almost no accessible resources and no indigenous people have ever lived there. It's the last major landmass to have been discovered by humans, with the first confirmed sightings only occurring in the 1820s. The sheer strangeness of its existence, a frozen, uninhabited continent at the bottom of the world, is probably why it attracts so much mythologizing. Antarctic Treaty. The Antarctic Treaty is a very real and historically significant international agreement, signed on December 1, 1959, by 12 nations including the US, USSR, UK, and others. It came into force in 1961 and has since been signed by over 50 countries. The treaty designates Antarctica as a scientific preserve, bans military activity, prohibits nuclear testing, and suspends all territorial claims for the duration of the agreement. It's actually considered one of the most successful arms control agreements of the Cold War era. However, conspiracy theorists often point to the treaty as suspicious. Why would rival superpowers at the height of the Cold War suddenly agree to share a whole continent peacefully? The theory goes that all major world governments discovered something so alarming in Antarctica that they collectively agreed to lock it down and keep the public out, using scientific research as a cover story. Pyramids in Antarctica. Satellite imagery and aerial photography have revealed several strikingly pyramid-shaped mountain peaks in Antarctica, and images of them circulated widely on the internet around 2016, causing a wave of speculation. Geologists are very clear on what these are. They're called nunataks, rocky mountain peaks that protrude through ice sheets, and their angular, pyramid-like shape is caused by a process called glacial erosion, where glaciers carve away rock from multiple sides over millions of years, leaving sharp geometric faces. It's the same process that creates pyramid-shaped peaks in the Alps and other mountain ranges. But the internet wasn't satisfied with that explanation. Conspiracy theorists and ancient astronaut enthusiasts claim the peaks were man-made structures, evidence of a lost civilization that once inhabited Antarctica when it was warmer, or even built by extraterrestrials. The images are genuinely striking, which is why this theory has so much staying power. New Swabia. New Swabia is actually a real place with a genuinely strange history. In January 1939, Nazi Germany sent an expedition to Antarctica aboard a ship called the MS Schwabenland, claiming a large section of the continent for the Third Reich and naming it New Schwabenland. The expedition dropped thousands of metal swastika markers from aircraft to stake the claim, partly to challenge Norwegian territorial claims in the region. After World War II, the story took on a life of its own. Conspiracy theorists, particularly those involved in post-war Nazi mythology, claimed that Germany had secretly built an underground base there called Base 211, and that high-ranking Nazis, and possibly Adolf Hitler himself, fled there after the war rather than dying in Berlin. There are elaborate theories about submarine supply lines, secret tunnels, and a surviving Nazi enclave operating beneath the ice to this day. Historians find no credible evidence for any of this, but the real historical kernel of the 1939 expedition gives the theory just enough grounding to keep it alive. Ice wall. The ice wall theory is a cornerstone of modern flat Earth belief. According to this worldview, the Earth is not a globe but a flat disk, and Antarctica is not a continent at all. It's a massive wall of ice, hundreds of meters tall, that encircles the entire outer edge of the disk and prevents the oceans from spilling off. The wall is supposedly patrolled and maintained in secrecy by governments and militaries, which is why civilian access to Antarctica is restricted. Some versions of the theory claim that beyond the ice wall lie other lands entirely unknown to humanity. The model traces its roots back to Samuel Robotham, a 19th century English inventor who argued for a flat Earth based on personal observations of a canal. Modern flat Earth communities have massively expanded on this, and Antarctica's restricted access is their go-to piece of evidence. The fact that no private citizen has ever circumnavigated Antarctica at its supposed outer edge is cited constantly as proof the wall exists. Operation High Jump. Operation High Jump was a real, large-scale United States Navy mission to Antarctica conducted between 1946 and 1947. It was led by Rear Admiral Richard Byatt and involved nearly 5,000 men, 13 ships, and multiple aircraft, an enormous undertaking for what was officially described as a training and mapping expedition. The mission was cut short, reportedly due to harsh weather conditions, after only about 2 months of a planned 6 to 8 month mission. This early termination is where the conspiracies really dig in. Some theorists claim the mission encountered fierce resistance, from Nazi holdouts at a secret Antarctic base, or from UFOs emerging from beneath the ice. They cite supposed quotes from Admiral Byatt about encountering enemy aircraft of extraordinary speed and capability. The actual explanation historians give is far more mundane. Antarctic conditions in winter are genuinely lethal, and the mission's timeline was always ambitious. But the scale of the operation and its abrupt end have made it a permanent fixture of Antarctic conspiracy lore. Entrance to a hollow Earth. The hollow Earth theory is one of the oldest in the book, predating Antarctica's discovery entirely. The basic premise is that the Earth is not a solid sphere but hollow inside, containing either a second sun, a vast subterranean landscape, or an entire hidden civilization. Various versions of the theory place the entrance at the North or South poles. In the Antarctic version, there is supposedly a massive opening at or near the South Pole, hidden by governments and kept off all official maps, through which one can descend into the interior world. Admiral Byatt is frequently cited as having flown into this opening during one of his expeditions. Some versions claim the inner Earth is inhabited by an advanced ancient race, sometimes described as the remnants of Atlantis, or by extraterrestrials who have been living there for millennia. While completely unsupported by any geological evidence, seismic data gives us an extremely detailed picture of Earth's solid and liquid interior layers. The theory remains deeply embedded in fringe culture and has inspired enormous amounts of fiction and mythology. Aliens. The alien theory surrounding Antarctica takes several forms. One of the most popular claims that extraterrestrials established a base in Antarctica thousands of years ago, possibly accounting for the so-called pyramids and other alleged anomalies detected via satellite. Another version ties into the UFO sightings reportedly associated with Operation High Jump, suggesting that a non-human civilization has been operating beneath the ice and that world governments are aware of and in contact with them. Some theories claim the Antarctic Treaty itself was negotiated not just between human nations, but between governments and alien entities, essentially a deal to keep humanity away from their territory in exchange for technology or other benefits. Ancient astronaut theorists often link Antarctica to broader claims about extraterrestrials engineering human civilization. In this telling, Antarctica was once a warm, inhabited continent where an alien or alien-assisted society flourished before some cataclysm flash froze it. Tropical land under the ice. This one has a small kernel of real science behind it, which makes it compelling. It is genuinely true that Antarctica was once a warm, forested continent. Hundreds of millions of years ago, it was part of the supercontinent Gondwana, located at much lower latitudes, and fossils of tropical plants and animals have been found there. There are also real geothermal features in Antarctica, subglacial lakes like Lake Vostok, which has been liquid for millions of years beneath kilometers of ice, possibly hosting microbial life. From these real facts, conspiracy theorists extrapolate wildly, claiming that beneath the ice sheet lies an entire living ecosystem, perhaps with forests, rivers, and even animal life completely unknown to science, all deliberately hidden from the public. Some versions claim that the warmth is not geothermal but comes from a hidden sun inside the hollow Earth, keeping the subglacial world habitable. The existence of Lake Vostok is genuinely fascinating science, but the leap to hidden jungles is purely in the realm of imagination. Antarctica was Atlantis. The idea that Antarctica is the site of the lost city of Atlantis, or more broadly, a lost advanced civilization, was significantly popularized by authors like Charles Hapgood in the 1950s and more recently by Graham Hancock. The argument goes something like this. Ancient maps, most famously the Peary Rise map of 1513, appear to show Antarctica's coastline before it was officially discovered and before it was covered in ice. This supposedly proves that an advanced civilization mapped the continent thousands of years ago when it was still ice-free and habitable. Hapgood proposed a theory called Earth crustal displacement, suggesting the entire outer crust of the Earth can shift dramatically in short periods, moving Antarctica from a temperate location to the South Pole and flash freezing whatever civilization existed there. Mainstream geologists reject crustal displacement as physically impossible, and Egyptologists and cartographers have offered conventional explanations for the Peary Rise map. But the theory is seductive because it offers a unified explanation for Atlantis, ancient advanced civilizations, and Antarctica's mysteries all at once. Admiral Byrd. Richard Evelyn Byrd was one of the most celebrated explorers of the 20th century, a decorated U.S. Navy officer who led 5 major expeditions to Antarctica between 1928 and 1956. He was the first person to fly over both the North and South Poles, and he spent months alone at a remote weather station in the Antarctic interior, an experience he wrote about in his book Alone. He is genuinely a fascinating and significant historical figure. But in conspiracy circles, Byrd has taken on almost mythological status. His journals and public statements are endlessly mined for hidden meanings. A supposed diary, almost certainly fabricated, circulates online claiming Byrd flew through the South Pole opening into the hollow Earth and met its inhabitants. His quotes about Antarctica being a land of great mystery are taken as coded admissions of suppressed discoveries. Operation Highjump, which he commanded, is treated as a military confrontation with non-human forces. In conspiracy lore, Byrd is simultaneously a brave discoverer of forbidden truths and a reluctant instrument of the global cover-up. Disappearances. Antarctica genuinely is one of the most dangerous places on Earth, and people have died there from accidents, exposure, equipment failures, and the sheer brutality of the environment. But the disappearances tier refers to something darker. The claim that people, researchers, scientists, military personnel, have gone missing in Antarctica under suspicious circumstances, and that these disappearances have been quietly covered up by governments or research institutions. Some versions of this theory claim that people who discovered something they weren't supposed to, underground structures, alien technology, the hollow Earth entrance, were silenced. The difficulty of verifying anything that happens in such a remote, restricted location makes this theory hard to definitively debunk, and that ambiguity is exactly what keeps it alive. There are real incidents of deaths in Antarctica that received little media coverage simply because of the continent's remoteness, and conspiracy theorists point to this low coverage as evidence of active suppression rather than geographic irrelevance. Plagues in the ice. This is one of the most grounded and scientifically discussed entries on the entire iceberg. As climate change accelerates the melting of Arctic and Antarctic permafrost and glacial ice, scientists have expressed genuine concern about ancient pathogens, bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms that have been frozen for tens of thousands or even millions of years, potentially being released back into an environment where modern life has no immunity to them. In 2016, a thawing Siberian permafrost layer released anthrax spores that had been frozen for over 75 years, killing reindeer and hospitalizing people. Researchers have revived 8,000-year-old viruses from permafrost in controlled lab conditions to study them. The conspiracy angle extends this legitimate concern into claims that governments are aware of specific, named plagues locked in Antarctic ice, ancient pandemic-level diseases, and that some have already been accidentally or deliberately released. It sits at the uncomfortable intersection of real science and fearful speculation. A creature is hiding beneath the ice, and it's waking up. This is where the iceberg fully leaves the realm of geopolitics and enters cosmic horror. The theory, more of a modern myth or creepypasta at this point, holds that something ancient and enormous is dormant beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, and that it is beginning to stir. This idea draws heavily from H.P. Lovecraft's fictional mythology, particularly his story, At the Mountains of Madness, in which a team of Antarctic explorers discovers the ruins of an ancient alien city and awakens its sleeping inhabitants. Lovecraft was writing fiction, but his work has so thoroughly permeated internet culture that the line between his invented mythology and real conspiracy theory has blurred for many people. Some proponents point to unusual seismic readings in Antarctica, unexplained sounds recorded under the ice, or the strange behavior of animals near the continent as evidence that something vast is waking up beneath the surface. It's the most primal of all the theories, the fear of something ancient, incomprehensibly large, and utterly indifferent to humanity lying just out of reach. Continents beyond Antarctica. This is the deepest, most reality-detached entry on the chart, and it ties everything together into one grand unified theory of concealment. The claim is that Antarctica is not the edge of the world but a barrier, whether a natural ice wall in the flat Earth model, or a militarized exclusion zone in other versions, beyond which lie entirely unknown continents, landmasses, and possibly civilizations that world governments have known about and hidden from the public for centuries. In some versions, these hidden continents are inhabited by human or non-human societies. In others, they contain resources, ruins, or phenomena so disruptive to the current world order that their existence has been systematically erased from all maps and records. The theory requires a conspiracy of almost incomprehensible scale. Every space agency, every government, every sailor and pilot who has ever navigated near Antarctica, all coordinating in silence. And yet for some, The very impossibility of keeping such a secret is itself reframed as proof of how powerful and all-encompassing the cover-up truly is. That was the Antarctica iceberg. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and also comment your own theories. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Thanks for watching.